So Raw was from Corpus Christi, Texas this past week. I don't believe my family members went to it, even though they live just down the street from the arena. I've seen the arena right there on the ocean. It's a nice little place, and Corpus Christi got a pretty good Raw this past week because it started things off with the return of Seth freaking Rollins. Now, Seth Rollins, we saw him at the Kentucky Derby and stuff like that looking a little different, but I guess, all this stuff has grown back out, facial hair, regular hair. Seth Rollins is back to looking just like Seth Rollins. So what do you make of Seth Rollins going right into the title picture to take on Damian Priest, who's coming off the win against Drew McIntyre at Clash at the Castle? And without any further ado, we already know pretty much our main event for Money in the Bank.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pleasant surprise to see Seth Rollins back. I wasn't sure when he would be back. I mean, I kind of figured it'd be sooner rather than later, so that was a nice surprise to kick off the show. Really quick on the drip game. He looks real good. I love the get up with that chain with the white. It looked good. It looked fresh. He looked like Seth Rollins. As we know, the beard grows back. We both have beards, so we know how quickly those babies grow back. So he's looking like $1 million. And the nice thing is, I'm not surprised that he's reinserting himself into the title picture. But the way what I liked about it though was Seth's like, man, I know a thing or two about Money in the Bank. So I've done that pretty well. He was alluding to like, okay, I don't mind earning my spot. Go get the Money in the Bank briefcase and then maybe not do what he did many years back with the cash in of the century, the heist of the century, so to speak. But he could have gotten the Money in the Bank and then, maybe cashed in at that point on Damian Priest. But Damian Priest comes down. They have themselves a nice little conversation. And Damian just pretty much put it on a silver platter and said, hey, let's go. Money in the Bank. You don't need to go get that briefcase. Why don't you and I just go one-on-one? I think it was done right. I think it was the right move. Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest, they've already done enough business while Seth has been gone. So Seth technically didn't get his rematch, so so to speak. So I'm okay with how it's all played out. I think it was a nice way to start off Raw. Welcome back, Seth Rollins, and maybe Damian Priest's time as champ will be coming to an end very soon.
Now, moving on to another point that happened on Raw, Drew McIntyre, the man who lost a Clash at the Castle to Damian Priest. Now, you were pretty much alluding to CM Punk in our previous episodes coming in and costing him that, in which essentially he did. I thought that Drew McIntyre would leave Scotland as champion. Here's the thing. Do you see Drew McIntyre becoming a world champion within the next, let's say, 12 calendar months in WWE? I know obviously he's got this feud going with CM Punk. He quit on Monday Night Raw from WWE. We'll see what kind of turns that takes us. I think it was like, was it 1 year ago, right? It was a little more than 1 year ago, I think, that Jey Uso quit WWE as well.
Yeah, quit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right around the same time. Yeah.
Remember, he dropped the mic and said, "I'm out." You know what I mean? Obviously, he wasn't out. But Drew McIntyre obviously isn't out. I think we're obviously setting up towards SummerSlam with Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. But I guess my thing is Scotland, your home country. I like WWE not doing the predictable thing. But would there be, we talked about this with Cody Rhodes and losing at WrestleMania in years past, and people essentially saying, well, get it on a bigger scale. And it's like, well, what is bigger, right, than what you did? For Drew McIntyre, he may win the championship in a couple months. Who knows? But you can't replicate some of the things that he's had the opportunity to win WrestleMania and now in Scotland winning the championship. Do you see him winning the championship? And how do you make it so that when he does win the championship, it ends up being all worth it?
I think for me, and this is, I'm going to go on a limb a little bit on this take because, you brought up a great question and a great point. I think within the next, I'll say within the next 12 calendar months, I think Drew's going to be the champion. I think he finally gets it at WrestleMania next year. And to me, like you mentioned, the grandest stage of them all. I think what's going to happen in the immediate future with the title picture is you're going to see Cody Rhodes doing something with Solo, and then we'll sort that out later. Drew is going to deal with CM Punk. Obviously, that there's some unfinished business. They're going to build that up real nice. It's going to be a great show at SummerSlam. And then while he's doing that, Damian Priest and Seth Rollins are going to do some business. I think Damian Priest is going to be he's going to be losing that title to Seth Rollins very soon here at the next pay-per-view with Money in the Bank. And I think we'll circle back to Drew after CM Punk and him do business. And I think Drew, he's earned it. Reportedly signed a pretty good sized deal. I mean, obviously we saw like the whole thing with The Rock. He was talking about that on Pat McAfee's show a few months back. I think what's going to happen is I think WWE they're being patient with Drew, which is maybe making some of the fan base a little upset because Drew's earned it. I think Drew has the fan base behind him. But I think what's going to happen is Damian Priest is going to drop the belt to Seth Rollins at Money in the Bank. I think Seth Rollins is going to hold the belt for a bit. I don't know what's going to happen between now and WrestleMania, but one thing I feel like should happen is I think Drew McIntyre, they should circle back and correct the wrong. And I'm not saying correct the wrong from a booking standpoint, but in Drew's mind, like he got wronged. So circling back, giving him finally what he deserves, and that's winning the championship at WrestleMania next year. I think that's the way we do business going forward.
I think it's difficult still even at WrestleMania, well, as big of a show as it is, for him to not win it essentially in Scotland, in his home country, right? Especially after we already know that he lost it to Roman Reigns in the UK at the original Clash at the Castle, and then obviously was screwed out at WrestleMania this year. If WrestleMania was in Scotland or something, I would say sounds like a plan. But I don't even know if WrestleMania essentially makes up for, winning the championship there would be as big a deal. Maybe
he's never had his true WrestleMania moment, really. Like he really hasn't. Like
that's true.
So I feel like they got to circle back and do that because he was what we call the COVID era champ, where he didn't get his moment in front of the grand stage of the big audience, all the pomp and circumstance that we expect at a WrestleMania because of the times we were in at that point. So for me, he had the championship for not even 5 minutes this past. He had it and he lost it. He didn't really have his real WrestleMania moment. So I think WWE should circle back to that at WrestleMania next year and give him that platform and let him finally win it and go over in front of a grand stage like WrestleMania. Yeah, sure, it's not Scotland, but he's never truly had his WrestleMania moment, and I think that means more to him than anything else, for me speaking.
All right, so with your idea of what you think, right, what we believe is a bigger deal for Drew McIntyre, you think that if he was given the opportunity, 100% in charge of his own booking, he's taking winning the championship at WrestleMania over winning it at Clash at the Castle in Scotland.
Yeah, I think so because and here's the other thing too. Like a lot of people, because I don't know if you noticed that I think they mentioned it on the broadcast from Clash in the Castle. He wore on his patch, I think he wore his wife's name, like a letter for his wife. So I think part of that to me almost, and I'm not saying I called that, but I'm like, okay, his wife's not there, so maybe he's not winning because I think if anyone's going to win a major championship, they're going to do it in front of their loved one, so to speak. So if one of the most important people in his life is not there, maybe that also kind of made me put it was like a seed in my head, wow, they really emphasize that. I wonder if he's going to go over or not. So for me, that's part of it because as we saw this past weekend in the I Quit match, AJ Styles, Cody Rhodes, Mama Rhodes was right there. Mama Rhodes slapped AJ Styles a few times. Actually, it was funny because she tapped him on the shoulder first and then slapped him a few times. I thought that was interesting. But the point is, when you have these big moments and big matches where you're supposed to go over, you want to do it in front of your family, and his wife wasn't there. So I'm not surprised that it didn't happen there. I think what's going to happen is I hope you never know with wrestling. I hope next year, WrestleMania, he's got all his loved ones there, and he can raise that championship in front of his loved ones and celebrate at WrestleMania.
Chad Gable, he was a big integral part of Clash of the Castle, Monday Night Raw. He was featured in the middle of Monday Night Raw in a very integral part, and then at the end of Monday Night Raw. We'll talk about that in a second. But in the middle of Monday Night Raw, what do you think of this unbelievably slow burn with the Death of Alpha Academy. Now, I've been talking about Death of Alpha Academy. That's why I thought Sami Zayn was clearly going to win, because I thought, the Alpha Academy was going to come to an end here. It still hasn't, but we are dragging it out to the point that it's just like flip the switch. Otis, Maxine, I mean, we've seen it now. We're like, Otis pushed Chad Gable, but then like didn't finish the job, you know what I mean? Then just like walked away with Maxine. Very reminiscent Otis when he took away a couple years ago Mandy Rose and that whole situation. So he's very good at picking up some of these lovely WWE ladies and bringing them to safety and defending them. That's his MO. But what do you make of this like slow, like why are we just like, is it over? I mean, it is over, but we still haven't done like the finality of it. And I know we're going to lead to them, but is this just kind of dragging things on because we got a 3-hour program?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's exactly what it is. I've gotten to the point where like it's been entertaining. Like I've enjoyed it. Like the fans, the crowd has been reacting to it. So that's obviously something WWE is taking notice of. But I think, and no offense to Otis, the entire Alpha Academy besides Gable, I think it's holding Chad Gable back at this point, and I feel like it's more of a detriment that he still has those Alpha Academy ties versus just being Chad Gable, this great great technician in the ring, and a future singles champion. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was not pleased by the result this past weekend. Like I'm just. I'm a Chad Gable believer. I've been a big fan of his. I've said this on our podcast over the last handful of years. Chad Gable needs to get pushed, and they've given him nudges, but they haven't given him the title and let him run with it. And nothing against Sami Zayn, but I think they got to get to a point where he needs to get Sami Zayn needs to drop the belt to Gable, which I don't think is going to happen at this point. But what they should have done is drop the belt, let Sami Zayn lose the belt to Gable, and then they have one more rematch. Gable holds on to the belt, and then Sami Zayn moves up the ladder and goes up to the World Championship picture, and then moves on to that because I think he's earned that as well because he's been a very, very good champion right now, and I think he's due for the that push to the next level, and by him doing that, I think it's good to hand the baton to Chad Gable at this point, but. Chad Gable's now in the Money in the Bank picture. He's got to qualify for the match. But I feel like at this point, with the way they're handling Chad Gable, I feel like I would be surprised if he actually won a qualifying match because if you're not going to put the Intercontinental Championship on him, then why would you put a World Championship on him? It makes no sense to me. Like, usually you work your way up. You don't keep losing Intercontinental title matches, then you get into the World Championship picture. It doesn't make sense to me. So I think, naturally speaking, I don't think he's going to qualify. If he does, he's definitely not winning the briefcase. And I think what they need to do with Alpha Academy is just finish it already. Like, just be done with it. I don't know what's going to happen with the rest of Alpha Academy, but one thing is for sure. It sounds like Chad Gable got himself a really nice deal because it sounds like he re-signed from all reports and all speculation out there. And it's been a pretty good contract, so Chad Gable should be in WWE for the foreseeable future. So I do think it's at some point he's got to get a singles championship, and I think he would be an excellent Intercontinental Championship sooner rather than later.
Well, all this talk about Chad Gable, who we talk about giving him a push and talk about his bright future, but for all intents and purposes, he's dead. Chad Gable died on Monday Night Raw. I don't know if you watched it, but Chad Gable's dead. At least that's what it looked like, right? He's lying there, not moving, not breathing, and he's got a big bloody gash in his head. And that's what we saw as part of the debut, in which couldn't have been more telegraphed. I even like Pat McAfee and Michael Cole when Drew McIntyre was coming out right before he quit WWE, and they had the little, the glitch in the thing, and Pat McAfee and Michael Cole were like, "That's tonight, right? They're coming tonight, right?" And he's like, "Yes, yep, I think that's tonight." And then they're like, "Okay, back on the Drew McIntyre, he's coming out next." Meaning that, yeah, we were all aware that it was the night we were waiting for it to happen. It was very much like Extreme Rules 2022. I guess the difference is, we weren't 100% at Extreme Rules. I was almost 100%, But it is a pay-per-view and stuff like that, and it wasn't 100. When Jey Uso won the match to qualify for Money in the Bank, which I don't know if you've caught this, he is on the official poster he is the face of the poster. It's Yeet in the Bank is the official poster for Money in the Bank in a few weeks. I don't know if that's foretelling that he's the heavy favorite to win it. But after he won with a good 6 minutes left before the top of the hour, we were just saying, where is it? When is it? Come on, get to it. And it did. The lights went out, and the Wyatt Six made their debut. We saw Bo Dallas as Uncle Howdy. We saw Nikki Cross as what they're saying is Sister Abigail, but didn't necessarily look like that in my eyes. I don't know if that's where that is going to be, or we're going to see another member later on.
It's Abby the Witch is really what it is. It's Abby the Witch.
Eric Rowan was Ramblin' Rabbit. Joe Gacy as Huskus the Pig, and Dexter Lumis as Mercy the Buzzard. A group of guys and girls that are here because they are broken. They've been in factions before, and they have been left to the wayside. So they are here to form this group. Which is Wyatt Six, and in some cases it's Wyatt Six with spelled SICKS, as in six, as in the sickos, or the like I said, the forgotten ones in a group. And a lot of people have also surmised to the fact that people like Chad Gable were targeted, and I think they noticed that Gunther was also there in the back because they're targeting the leaders of groups in which are the reason and why some of these people were left to the wayside. Somebody this past week called up Busted Open Radio, and he just had them floored talking about this in great detail. I mean, these are Bubba Ray, Tommy, Dave LaGreca, all these guys, big wrestling. This is what they do for a living. They're accepting all these calls, and this guy had this thing laid out, talking because they're saying, what is the reason they're here? What are they going to do? They need to explain themselves. This guy said they've done all that. They've explained themselves. He detailed how in all the vignettes there actually is, if you go back and look, they cover every single person in the vignettes. And they cover every single reason why they're going after the people. It's essentially people that got forgotten about in other groups and left to the wayside, like I mentioned. And right now they're targeting the heads of groups. He mentioned the movie Split, which was an M. Night Shyamalan movie based off of, Unbreakable, that series, and about how he was kind of going after the heads of state, right? He was going to the people whom are in charge, right? And the people below them, saving the subordinates and going after the administration, if you will. And that's what they think Chad Gable is, right? He's the head of the Alpha Academy. He's the reason why people like Otis and Maxine are, being hurt, being misused, being mistreated. Now, my question to you, with the big debut, obviously, this past week, is Wyatt Six. We saw 5. Do we have another member? Is Bray Wyatt essentially the overseeing member of this? Or do we see another physical person join this group?
Oh, that is a great question. I think if I had to lean one way or the other, I feel like in tribute to Bray, I feel like they're going to leave it the way that it is. But if they go in a different direction and they include somebody else, what better person than Alexa Bliss making her return after her long absence as a part of the group? But if I had to lean one way, and I think this is the way I would do it personally, just as Bo Dallas, his Uncle Howdy, the tip of the cap to his late brother Bray Wyatt. I think that's what I would do, and I would say, okay, because here's maybe he'll explain this, like, yeah, we're the Wyatt Six, even though there's 5, and then they can explain, maybe they'll go into detail and explain why. And I think that's the way they should do it. I think that's what I would do. But I wouldn't be upset if Alexa Bliss eventually joins the crew. I do like how it's assembled. As much as I've given flack to Joe Gacy, I think he is a perfect fit for this group. I think he has that sadistic nature about him. And, I really liked how everything played out for the last 5 minutes of the show. And we talked about this. We were texting, in the last few days. And and it's very well documented. You guys can go back. Anybody can go back and listen or watch any of our podcasts over the years. I am not a horror film guy, and I know you're more. That's more your wheelhouse than mine. I'm not really into the horror film game, and I always and then you made the funny comment. I was waiting for you to say that, where you're like, you don't even like horror films, but you like this. I don't. It's hard for me to explain why, but I just think the creativity, the theatrics in a wrestling setting, Bray Wyatt's mind, the way it worked, and the way they're doing this as a tribute to somebody who I was very sad when we found out Bray Wyatt, passed away. Almost a year now. It's been almost a year. It'll be a year this summer. But to me, like the whole package, the whole creativity, and the characters involved, I know it's horror filmy, but for some reason it just hooked me. Like I'm just like, it's just so interesting. It's not something you normally see in a WWE setting per se, so that's why I like it as much as I do. I just think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
I think one thing that goes back to Bray Wyatt himself and all of this, and I enjoy all the vignettes. I enjoy all of this, but at the end of the day, unfortunately, the WWE is still a wrestling program. And at the end of the day, we have to find a way to make this translate in the ring. And listen, I will say WrestleMania during COVID, WrestleMania 36, the whole Firefly Funhouse match, I guess that was a way to do it because there was no fans and you could essentially make a match out of vignettes, right? I didn't like that because I am a wrestling fan, right? I like wrestling. I don't like wrestling. I like the vignettes and the wrestling to be things separate from each other. But now that we're not in that world, we're in regular wrestling world. We have to make sure that this translates good to the ring. A lot of times, drop the ball a little bit, right? I didn't have too much of an issue with the Pitch Black match sponsored by Mountain Dew at the Royal Rumble 2023, which was essentially the last televised match for Bray Wyatt against LA Knight. But a lot of people thought it was a little hokey. A lot of people thought it wasn't their cup of tea. They didn't care for the ending whole thing where Uncle Howdy obviously jumped onto LA Knight, and maybe they returned that story in a way. But I guess you just have to make sure that it translates. It gets back into the ring. It has meaning. And I will say that I stick up with a lot of people who say, and I agree, we can't have too much in this supernatural. We had a few supernatural things again during COVID. The whole Bray Wyatt being burned alive, and then I remember he came back at WrestleMania reborn. Listen, and again, maybe it worked kind of a little bit during COVID, right? But I think to make this work, can't have a lot of hokiness, can't have a lot of silliness, can't have a lot of the supernatural. We got to make it work with the people we got. With what we have, I mean, the backstage stuff was fine because it wasn't CGI. It seemed, somewhat part of the, practical effects. So practical effects are fine, but yeah, we just got to make sure we don't get too like you swing and you hit me with an axe and I can't be killed with an axe because I'm supernatural, that kind of thing, because that just doesn't work in the wrestling world because it's wrestling. Yeah. So I will say I hope that this doesn't go down that route. Like before, I wonder how long until we start to see some in-ring stuff. That's always the thing here. It always takes forever. It was at Extreme Rules 2022. Bray Wyatt came back, then was nowhere to be found at Survivor Series, right? Then had the match at Royal Rumble, and then I think he did that match a few times during house shows as well. They did the Pitch Black match at house shows as well. I thought it was a pretty kind of cool gimmick, especially at a house show. That definitely provides like a different element to run that back at house shows. So definitely cool there. But then that was it. So we have to essentially make sure that it translates. And also, I'm curious when I'll close out our Raw talk and our weekend WWE talk with this. When do you see the in-ring, bell ring, referee in the ring, in-ring debut of anyone in this Wyatt clan? How long do we wait?
I think it's before SummerSlam. I think it's going to happen. I think what's going to happen.
Month and 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think what'll happen. Yeah, a month and 2 weeks. I would say Uncle Howdy doesn't wrestle until SummerSlam, but I think his cohorts. I think they will be in the ring. I would say within the next month. Give it about 4. I'd say another 3 or I'd say 4 more episodes of Raw, maybe 3 to 4. I'd say 3 to 4 episodes of Raw. I think we'll see like the characters, like obviously you mentioned Dexter Lumis. I think they're gonna start off with working their. Someone's gonna work their way up that tree, so to speak, and then it'll get to Uncle Howdy. I think Uncle Howdy doesn't wrestle till SummerSlam, in my opinion.